Hi, welcome to Board Gems. In this video, I'll be comparing the 3 English editions of the classic Reiner Knizia auction game Medici. On the bottom is a late 90s, I want to say, edition of Medici from Rio Grande Games. I couldn't figure out what year it came out. There's no copyright notice on the box. Usually Board Game Geek has that info and it doesn't have it for this edition. On the top left is a more recent, I think this one's around 2006, also from Rio Grande Games. This one was a co-production, I think with Abacus in Germany. 10 years later, 2016, we have the Grail Games edition with fancy pants art from Vincent Dutray? He's quite in demand as an artist. That old edition, this is one of those games from Rio Grande that they wanted to make an English edition, but they already kind of missed the boat on doing a co-production because it was already out in Germany from Amigo, so they made their own. And at least back then, they weren't that good at making their own, if I'm perfectly honest. It's really not much of a looker, but it gets the job done, just like me. In terms of box size, the newest edition, Medici, is around about the same size as something like a Agricola, like that sort of standard rectangular box, but is thinner. You can see the old edition is a little bit bigger in all dimensions than that one, and the 2006 edition on top is exactly the same size as something like a Carcassonne. There's not much to say about the insides. They all have very simple cardboard inserts. The old edition has some of the card art printed on the insert because why not? Commission that art, let's give it some use. But otherwise it's just a simple well. It's all you really need. The rules, the old edition is old, and so that's why it's in black and white. The 2006 edition in the middle is colorful, but the text is pretty small, and it reads like a fairly standard Rio Grande rulebook, which is, it's not going to hold your hand so much in learning the game. Whereas the newest edition has very large text, lots of clear examples. They did a really great job with the rulebook. Here are the boards. The main idea of Medici is that there are these 5 tracks representing the 5 different goods that players can purchase and then basically trade in for points. And you can be further up on the tracks, which will give you bonuses potentially. In the first edition, they just have the 5 tracks oriented just all next to each other, whereas in the newer editions, they're arranged in a circle with the tops of the tracks pointing toward the middle. Look at that board. Just look at it. I'm so fascinated by the graphic design choices, just putting Medici all over the place, putting numbers on every other space, and for some reason they're the odd numbers. I mean, I feel bad giving the graphic artist a hard time. I'm not a graphic artist, I'm sure I couldn't do a better job. Now in the 2 newer editions at the bottom, very similar of course, the 5 tracks arranged in a circle and a score track around the edge. The important thing to look at here, and we'll come back to, are the colors. Because there's 5 different colors of goods. And in 2006 edition, they're kind of very light and pastel. They stand out from each other, but they're all very faint. And in the newer edition, they are very saturated. The colors really pop, really stand out, and are mostly pretty clear. Here are the boats. Oldest at the top, newest at the bottom. A boat has 5 spaces for the goods that you collect. In the 2 Rio Grande editions, top and middle, they're pretty thin cardboard. In my copy, for the middle one, it's quite curved, quite warped, whereas the bottom is really thick cardboard. Now these colors are different from the colors of the goods. These are the player colors. The same colors in the old Rio Grande and the newer Rio Grande edition. They just have, you know, little meeples for little, I don't know what they are, maybe little money pouches. But of course, as was typical at the time, there's no differentiation between the pieces other than color. So if you are colorblind or just if it's poor light, you might have difficulty distinguishing between 2 of the colors. The new edition addresses that by having on one side only, the side that's showing here, a sort of a made-up coat of arms almost, unique to that token. So very colorblind friendly. That bottom one with the key, it's kind of more of a brown, but it really picked up the flash here. And here are the goods. Again, oldest at the top, newest on the bottom, including these player aids, which are very welcome. The player aids are only in the newest edition, if we call them first, second, and third. In first and third edition, they are cards. And in the second edition only, they are cardboard tiles. Which is better? I have a pretty strong opinion on this. The cardboard tiles are the best. That's the way to go. Because a player's turn comes up, they're going to be drawing goods to put up for auction. And it's easy in the second edition that you can simply pass the bag of tiles to the next player so they can start the auction. You can't easily do that with a deck of cards. You could put the deck of cards in the middle of the table where everyone can reach, but of course you have a board in the middle of the table, and the middle of the board does not have a space for the cards. The oldest edition, the colors I find are very, very clear, and of course the artwork definitely differentiates them. The numbers are not quite as clear, but it only takes a second. The numbers also have unnecessary style flourishes in the second edition. Third edition, those numbers are the clearest. And the yellow and the brown, when looking at them individually, it takes a second to figure out what it's supposed to be. When they're next to each other, it's very clear. When one is by itself, it takes you a second. Now, there is a symbol on the top, so it's not a huge deal, but it's just something to note. And the newest edition from 2016 has this extra stuff. It has a start player marker on the left. Very nice token. Those blue tokens on the bottom left are used to denote rounds, so 1 and 2, and then 3 is printed on the board. The red tokens can be used to track which of the 5 goods that you've scored already. So as you've scored and given points for silk, you could flip over the silk, and then if you do grain, you score all the points and you can flip over the grain. So you never have to ask, oh, did we already do this one? And there's also 2 extra little boards showing 2 extra spaces for your boat, because in the 2-player version of Medici, each player has a boat with 7 spaces. So you just add this to the side. Thanks for watching. Medici is a great game, and it definitely does not stop being good just because newer games come out. Take care.